The taking. The jungle was silent in the way only an apex predator could make it. Virak moved through the mist with the rest of the hunting party, his armor plates flexing over muscle, his claws clicking softly on the vine-choked earth. Tonight was not a hunt for meat. Tonight was for honor. The prey was alien, off-worlders. Soft-skinned bipeds with fragile bones, slow reactions, and no natural weapons to speak of. Still, the elders had commanded their capture, curious to test the strength of this human species. They found the human outpost at the edge of the marshlands, ugly metal walls, glaring lights, and the stench of chemical fire. The humans had tried to tame the wild. The wild would answer. Virak and his kin struck like a shadow pack. In seconds, the watchtowers fell. Gunfire echoed, sharp and unnatural, but the clan moved faster, weaving between the bursts. One by one, the humans dropped. Those who resisted died. Those who fled were dragged back, bound in hunting nets. It was almost too easy. And then Virak saw it. Small movement in the corner of a broken shelter. A tiny shape, half hidden under a metal crate. He tilted his head, scenting. It was another human, but smaller. Much smaller. The creature emerged on its own, crawling into the pale light. It couldn't have reached the height of Virak's chest, even standing on tiptoe. Round face, wide eyes, small hands clutching a frayed blanket. A cub. The other hunters laughed when they saw it. "This is prey," one scoffed, tapping the cub's head with the back of his claw. The child didn't cry. It didn't flinch. It simply looked up at Virak, studying him with unnerving stillness. "Bring it," the hunt leader ordered. A rare trophy. Virak gathered the cub in one massive arm. It weighed almost nothing, its heartbeat rapid but steady. In the long trek back through the jungle, it made no sound. Not even when the other humans screamed from the nets slung over the hunter's shoulders. The Predator clan's stronghold was a fortress of bone and steel, built into the cliffs above the Red River. The child was placed in Virak's dwelling for safekeeping until the elders decided its fate. The others came to see the strange catch. Warriors crowded around, laughing and baring fangs. "It is fragile," one said. "It would not survive a day in the wild." Yet the cub stood silent in the center of the room, eyes flicking from speaker to speaker, as though cataloging each face, each voice. Virak watched. Predators know the language of prey, the twitch of fear, the tremor of surrender. This one showed neither. When night came, Virak set the child near the heatstone, giving it a strip of dried meat. The cub sniffed it, turned it over in small fingers, and then bit without hesitation. It ate in neat, careful motions, never breaking its gaze from him. "You do not fear me," Virak said in his own tongue. He did not expect understanding. The cub tilted its head. "You, big," it said, the words clumsy but clear. Then it pointed to itself. "Me, small." Virak froze. The clan's language was not spoken beyond their kind. How had this creature learned even those few words in mere hours? Before he could ask, the hunting horns sounded from the cliff. Scouts returning from the outer perimeter, but their pace was wrong. Too fast. The lead scout burst into the chamber, armor-scored, eyes wide. "Off-world vessel in orbit," he growled. "It sends only one message." He handed Virak the recording node. The device hissed to life, spilling a voice into the air, not in the predator tongue, but in the guttural rhythm of human speech. Even without understanding every word, the meaning was clear from the tone alone. It was not a plea. It was a promise. Virak caught one phrase, repeated twice. "Return the child. Or burn." The gathered warriors laughed. "They think to threaten us," the hunt leader scoffed. "For one small prey cub." But Virak looked at the child. It was smiling. Not a happy smile. Something colder. Something that said it understood exactly what was coming, and that whatever it was, would not be the predator's victory. The first lesson. The elders assembled in the council pit at dawn. Their hides were draped in bone trophies, their eyes glowing with the confidence of 1,000 hunts survived. The human warship in orbit was spoken of like a gnat, an annoyance, not a danger. "They threaten us for a single offspring," scoffed Elder Krashul, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "We could break their ship with one volley from the cliff guns." "They do not understand our strength," another said. Virak stood at the edge of the circle, the child at his side. He had carried it from his dwelling because it refused to remain there. Refused, that was the correct word. He had told it to stay. It had simply stared at him, then walked past his legs as if he hadn't spoken at all. "They understand something," Virak said. "They came quickly. They speak with certainty." The elders ignored him. In predator clan culture, a warrior's voice held little weight before the council until his fur was streaked with white. The decision was swift. No return, no parley. The warship would be ignored unless it attacked. Back in his dwelling, Virak watched the cub. It was not like the other captured humans, who had either screamed or gone limp in defeat. This one moved with intent. It examined his weapons rack, touching the grips of the plasma spears. It lingered near the comms console, eyes following the blinking runes. When he took away the food bowl, it pointed to the water gourd, then to itself, then mimed drinking. A request. Clear. Purposeful. By the second day, it was repeating words in the predator tongue, not just nouns, but actions. Eat. Run. Go. On the third day, something happened that set Virak's spines on edge. The warship transmitted again. This time, the signal carried no open threat, only a string of tightly encrypted bursts. The clan's tech slaves tried to crack it, hissing in frustration at the alien code. The cub was sitting near the console. It tilted its head, listening to the faint beeps that no untrained ear should understand. Then it smiled, that same cold, knowing smile. It reached up with both hands and tapped 3 buttons in sequence. The screen lit up with a green icon, transmission acknowledged. "You," Virak began, then stopped. He could not decide whether to call it clever or dangerous. Hours later, the scouts reported an intrusion in the outer jungle. A metal pod the size of a hunting sled had landed without a sound. Tracks led away from it, vanishing into the mist. The warriors armed themselves, but the intruders moved like ghosts. Traps were triggered with no prey caught. Sentries vanished without a cry. By nightfall, the clan's outer ring was abandoned. The warship never fired a shot. It didn't have to. Virak sat near the heatstone, sharpening his spear. The cub sat opposite, gnawing dried meat. "They are coming for you," Virak said quietly. The child's eyes met his. "Yes. You are one cub. They would risk much for you." The child tilted its head in thought, then said, "Because I am theirs. Humans do not leave their own." The words were simple, but they landed like a spear point. Predator kinship was blood and honor, but this human spoke as if their loyalty was something far more absolute. "You tell them where we are," Virak accused. The cub swallowed, then nodded once. "Yes. No fear. No shame." It was as if betrayal was not betrayal when it was for its own kind. That night, Virak could not sleep. The jungle outside his dwelling was too quiet. The usual night hunters had fled. He thought of the child's eyes, the precision of its speech, the way it had manipulated the console. This was not prey. This was a signal. At dawn, the first predator bodies were found, not torn apart in battle, but placed neatly at the gates, each tagged with a human glyph. A message. The elders raged. Patrols doubled. Weapons were armed. But Virak could see the truth. The humans were not here to fight the clan. They were here to dismantle it, piece by piece, until nothing stood between them and their cub. And if the humans could do this without showing their faces, what would happen when they finally chose to? The breaking point. The first clash came at midday. The sun burned high, scattering harsh light through the thick canopy. Virak and a dozen hunters stalked the jungle perimeter, plasma spears at the ready. The humans had been shadows until now, traps sprung with no prey, sentries gone without sound. But today they struck. A hum rose in the air. Not the roar of a ship, but something smaller, faster. 3 metallic shapes darted between the trees, machines, no larger than a predator's head, gliding without wings. The lead hunter hurled his spear. The machine twisted midair, dodging, then fired a single pulse of light. The hunter's chest plate erupted. He fell without a sound. The jungle exploded in motion. Figures in mottled armor flickered into view, appearing and vanishing as if the forest itself spit them out. Their weapons made no thunder, only the muted cough of compressed air. But every sound was followed by a predator falling, clutching a joint, a throat, a vital artery. Virak fought to push them back, striking at shapes that seemed always a step out of reach. He caught one in his claws at last, small, slender, wrapped in human armor. It thrashed with surprising force, and in that instant, he saw its eyes. Not fear. Focus. It slammed a device against his armor. Heat flared. Circuits burned. The human tore free, vanishing into the trees before he could recover. By dusk, the clan had lost more warriors than in any hunt of the past decade. None of the attackers' bodies were found. The humans left nothing behind. No weapons, no dead, not even footprints. In the council pit, the elders raged. "They shame us," Elder Kroshul thundered. "They will know the full force of our wrath. We will crush them." Virak looked at the child sitting in the corner. No one had thought to confine it anymore. There was no point. The cub moved freely now, slipping through the stronghold as if it had lived there all its life. When the elders paused for breath, Virak asked, "Why do they fight like this? Why not strike all at once?" The cub answered before any elder could. "Because they are learning." Every head turned. The words were in perfect predator tongue, spoken with a child's voice but a soldier's certainty. Virak's spines prickled. "Learning what?" "Where you are strong," the child said. "Where you are weak. Who commands? Who listens? When you sleep. When you eat. When you fight. Soon," it shrugged, "they will not need to fight you at all." The silence that followed was heavier than the jungle heat. That night, the attack came again, but not to the outer defenses. The humans struck the food stores. No blood spilled. No weapons fired. Just poisoned rations, smashed barrels, ruined harvests. When the hunters gave chase, they found only decoys, heat signatures and noisemakers that mimicked human movement but led into dead ground. When Virak returned to his dwelling, he found the cub awake, sitting cross-legged in the firelight. "You guide them," Virak said. The cub didn't deny it. "Yes. They will destroy my clan. They will take me home." Virak sat heavily across from it. "You would see us dead for you?" The cub's gaze didn't waver. "Not for me. For us. For any of us. We do not leave our own." Virak thought of predator kinship, blood bound to blood, clan bound to clan. But this human spoke as though every member of its species was family, no matter how far, no matter how small. That was not kinship. That was something fiercer. By the third night, the fortress walls were breached. Not by force, by absence. Entire watchposts had been abandoned. Those stationed there had vanished without a sound. In the council pit, the surviving elders argued over whether to retreat into the mountains or call for allied clans. None spoke of surrender. None could. Outside, Virak climbed to the outer ridge and looked into the burning jungle. Somewhere out there, the humans waited, patient as frost. He understood now, this wasn't a war. It was a hunt. And for the first time in his life, Virak knew what it was to be the prey. The lesson learned. The fortress fell at dawn. Not with the thunder of war engines or the roar of an orbital strike, but with silence. The gates, 30 spans high and carved from the bones of great beasts, stood open. No one had seen them forced. No one had heard the locks break. The inner courtyards were empty. Sentries were gone. Barracks stood with weapons still on their racks, untouched. Virak moved through the stillness with his spear in hand, spines rigid. His breath misted in the cool morning air, too loud in the quiet. He reached the council pit and found only the dead, not torn apart, not mutilated, but laid in a ring as though in ritual. Each corpse bore the same mark, a small strip of cloth with a human glyph for unity. A sound drew his ear, the soft crackle of fire from the direction of his dwelling. The cub sat in the doorway, back to the flames, eyes fixed on him. Behind it stood 3 humans in armor unlike any Virak had seen, smooth, seamless, black as deep water. Their helmets were featureless, their movements precise. One stepped forward. Smaller than Virak, but its presence was as sharp as a blade. "You have something that belongs to us," the human said in predator tongue. Its accent was perfect. Virak's claws tightened on his spear. "It was taken as prize. It is mine." The human tilted its head, as though weighing his words. Then it pointed to the cub. "It is ours." The cub rose without hesitation and walked to them. No glance back, no sign of fear. One of the armored humans knelt, lifting the child with practiced care, cradling it against its chest. Virak's voice was low. "You came for one. You killed many. Why?" The commander's answer was simple. "Because we do not leave our own. Ever." The words struck like a blow. Not threat, not boast, truth. The air shimmered. More humans appeared from the shadows, dozens of them, each as disciplined and silent as the first. They moved through the fortress without hurry, taking nothing, destroying nothing, leaving only absence in their wake. Virak stepped aside as they passed, his pride burning hotter than the fires now licking at the fortress walls. This was not a victory wrested by force of arms. This was inevitability made flesh. When the last soldier filed past, the commander paused beside him. "You hunt well," it said. "You are strong. But strength without purpose is nothing. Remember that." Then they were gone, into the mist, into the jungle, toward the waiting warship that had never needed to fire a single shot. By midday, the human vessel was gone. The jungle was still. The fortress was quiet. The surviving warriors gathered in the council pit, their voices low, their bodies marked with defeat. Elder Kroshul was gone, as were half the seasoned hunters. The clan's power had been broken without a true battle. Some spoke of vengeance, others of retreat. But the fear in their eyes was new, not the fear of an enemy's weapon, but the fear of an enemy's will. Virak stood apart, watching the smoke drift skyward. In his mind, he saw the cub's calm stare, the way it had never doubted that rescue would come. That certainty was the human's true weapon. Predators hunted to feed, to prove dominance, to uphold tradition. Humans hunted for something else entirely. For the ones they called their own, they would bring ruin without pause, without mercy, without rest. It was not their claws or their weapons that made them dangerous. It was their refusal to stop. When the sun fell, Virak climbed to the ridge overlooking the Red River. The wind carried the distant calls of night hunters returning to their ranges, reclaiming a jungle that had been emptied by fear. He spoke softly to the dark, knowing the words would spread through the clans like wildfire. "Never take a human cub," he said. "For when you do, their doom will become yours."